Just to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, welcome to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. We are still on Kellen Moore watch. It looks like he is imminently going to be our next head coach, but we still don't know anything official and won't know anything for another week. So I guess we should address that other little thing that's going on in Saints land today, huh?
Small thing?
Yeah.
Communications issue?
Something like that.
Yeah, they had slight
PR for some local...
Slight communication error on behalf of, I don't know, the entirety of their leadership. And error, putting it lightly. The three of us are not three guys to really delve into the huge societal aspects of the news that came out about the Saints. But, I think a lot of people are curious, hey, didn't this news come out in 2020? Isn't this old news? The issue is that when the story broke that Gail Benson and her communication staff, Greg Bensel, Lauscha, the whole team over there, when the story came out that they had anything to do with helping Archbishop Amond with the Archdiocese of New Orleans with the scandal that was going on with them, they were very mum about it. They were asked a lot of questions, very specific questions. Did you have anything to do with contacting law enforcement and having direct communications with the district attorney's office in New Orleans about who's on the list, who's not on the list? How specifically did Miss Benson reach out to the Archbishop? Did you give the Archbishop a whole media strategy? And the answers out of Airline Drive were very much high-level, 30,000-foot view, and mostly categorical denials. While Gail offered her support of Archbishop Amond, she said, we weren't doing the media strategy type things that the media is making it out to be. And so then litigation ensued, mostly public records request acts by a lot of different media companies, all of which happened down the road in our lovely Orleans Parish Civil District Court. And there was a huge effort to get a bunch of documents released from the Saints, including emails. Ultimately, I forget if there was a settlement. I know a lot of the guys on the list were, fired or whatever the church does to them. One of the guys recently was convicted and actually passed away about a week after. He was convicted by Orleans Parish current DA Jason Williams. But the news that broke today was the release of a bunch of emails, like hundreds of emails, that were subject to a court order, which I think the Saints had some probably peace of mind for their part that the emails were held secret by a court order. But whoever broke the news to The Guardian and the AP today in connection with WWL's investigation, WWL TV, those were emails that were released in violation of a court order. That's by no means saying what's in the emails shouldn't have been released or that anything the Saints did is okay. If the allegations are that they were helping to cover up a church scandal. But I think, that's why the story is different, is that now we know that the direct communications between Saints officials and the Archdiocese, and it does appear that they very much were different than what they told the whole public that they were doing. Direct involvement by Greg Bensel, through direction of Gail Benson, telling Archbishop, hey, we've been through some shit too, so we're going to help you all through this stuff, and so that's where the whole story is. I think a lot of people were coming down on the Saints, and I think they should be come down on. I mean, they should have totally stayed away from the whole issue. Do I think the Saints were helping to further any pedophilia from the Catholic Church? No, but I think that they were trying to help an organization that was clearly in the wrong, and that's where this whole thing is unsettling. And so, rightfully so, yet again, there's another thing that has happened within the doors of Airline Drive that is not good. That is a terrible look for the team. That probably hurts a lot of individuals who were the victims of all this stuff, because it shows that a billionaire was trying to save the face of her asset instead of just being open and honest about everything that happened and saying they were trying to remedy it. So that's that for today's news.
Yeah, your summary somehow was almost as long as the actual article.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Nick didn't even finish the article because it was too long.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts.
But I would say if you are trying to cover it up, you are contributing to it happening more in the future. So you have to at least, they deserve all the criticism they're getting, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion. What does it have to do with football? Nothing. I think that has to do with what type of people they are and what they believe in, and that's for them to answer to, because they're the ones who did it. So doesn't have much to do with the team, other than it's more stuff for us to pile on ownership and management that we've been piling on about actually how they perform their job. And now we're going to add their personal beliefs into it, and the way they decide to go about protecting people who do horrible things. So I don't think anyone can come out of that without thinking negatively about it and about them as their decision making. But we're not experts. I think that's our personal opinion, and I hope that most people's opinion is that way when we're talking about stuff like this.
Yeah, the optics of it are terrible. It's while they may not have broken any laws and done anything illegal, just optically, it's a disgusting look. Yeah. We all went to Catholic schools pretty much all of our lives, and the thought of, we obviously have heard things that have gone on, and, being in a city, it's such a large Catholic community, you can't help but hear of these things that have gone on, and it's disgusting all around. Yeah. I just hate that the team is associated with it in any way. It is a black eye.
They chose to interject themselves into
it. They really
it.
did.
So it's on them. It's on them 100%.
Yeah. I mean, part of the story involved the high school that we went to. Yep. When there was a priest that, used to work at Jesuit, and they had conversations with the then president of the school. And, it's like everything that the team did was, I don't know, it seemed like done from a position of superiority, try to protect a brand. But, I mean, as a graduate of Jesuit, I'll be the first to say that if a priest that worked at Jesuit did something wrong, then he should, meet the fire for it. He should have his feet held to the fire. He should face the consequences, and anybody that kind of helps soften the blow, even for an institution that we all, hold dear, they shouldn't be condoned.
And look, kudos to Ramon Vargas for the article. He did a great job on it. He's a Jesuit graduate as well.
Yeah.
Met him a few times. Real good guy.
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations with him.
Did a great job on the article, and it's a shame that we have to read that sort of thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I'll tie it in, like Nick, you were saying, does it have anything to do with football? No, but I think it does tie into something we mentioned in our last episode when we were talking about, the missteps of Loomis, how he really, has not proven himself, his decisions, his management of the team to be a good GM. I mean, besides a few obviously good key moves, overall, he's had some horrible moves. And then you look to ownership, and you look to Gale, who has had way, call it too much patience with people. Just the whole, it furthers it's more confirmation that whole executive wing of Airline Drive is a good old boys club, with Gale included, where they think their shit doesn't stink. They're the biggest fish in a small pond of the city of New Orleans, and so they feel like they've got requisite amount of power, and they do. I mean, hell, they were talking to a federal judge, someone at the time who's a future federal judge. They're talking to the district attorney in New Orleans, who's now the chief of the criminal division of the attorney general's office in Louisiana. They have access to powerful people, and I think they felt like they were exerting that flex by helping the most powerful clergyman in the state, and it was like stretching too far as a flex. They didn't have to do it. But it goes to show why when we're frustrated with the team from a football standpoint, and we're sitting here saying shit needs to change, like look at what Loomis has done. If any other GM had that track record at other teams, you would see him go the way of recent GMs that have been fired from their teams. But we know that ain't going to happen anytime soon, or at least doesn't look like it. And so I think it goes further into that whole deal where it's just like they're just such a
Well, look, at
door.
risk of going too long into this, because I know we all wanted to touch on it briefly, I think the main thing we need to touch on is, do we think anything's going to come of this? I don't think anything happens to the Saints. Goodell already came out and
Goodell
said
said as much, right? So.
Yeah, it depends on how much outside pressure. Goodell has proven to be totally invincible or just aloof to outside pressure. It would have to be an enormous amount of outside pressure and public scorn.
It feels like this is going to be forgotten by Friday.
Yeah,
not forgotten. I hate to use that word because it's obviously a big deal, but I feel like it's going to be other things are going to,
It's a thing. It's an issue. But like the only time you saw the league step in or even nudge an ownership situation is with the Dan Snyder shit in Washington, and so I don't see that as being on that. This as being on that level. But that's why I'm done. I'm off of the story itself. But I do think that it just furthers the story,
the way you believe of their character. This is a character problem, but just the way they do things. They're obviously all aligned.
Yeah.
Right. They're all one moving unit, and whether it's Gale calling all the shots and everybody's marching in order or whatever it is, they're all aligned. So like you said, most likely Loomis is going to be around. Even when he's out of that position, he'll still be around, like we've said many times.
And Loomis isn't even named in any of this.
No, and I'm not blaming him, and I don't want to bring him into it because he doesn't deserve that. Even though, our other complaints, you shouldn't be roped into something like this just by default.
He's too busy fucking up the football operation to worry about the Catholic Church.
Right. So, I agree. I don't think much comes of it from the NFL side, and I'm not sure that it should. I think they should face the consequence of public opinion on it and have to deal with whatever BS that comes with it for what their involvement was. And luckily, it's out there now, and the attempts to keep it hidden. Corey got into the legal aspect of all that and how maybe it was, how the release went about, but regardless, I think it's good to come to light and people know what they were doing. And now they have to face that in the court of public opinion, and they will.
Yeah, and I think, anyone who's worried about it from a football standpoint, I don't think the Saints are going to lose any draft picks. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be really talked about much after this week. I think... I know social media especially Reddit was in meltdown mode earlier today about the topic. People swearing off the team, saying they were going to not wear Saints colors, logo, any of this stuff. Everyone was saying, Benson should have to sell the team. Everybody should be fired. None of that's going to happen. This will quietly go away in about a week. But let's move on to happier topics.
Yeah.
I know you were excited about the Senior Bowl this week.
Yeah, excited is one word for it. I think I always like, any chance to see the guys on TV or just see guys perform outside of having to hear about their measurables or outside of having to hear what they did in a 3-cone drill or some kind of make-believe exercise that's supposed to translate to football. You get to see some of the best in college football go against the other best guys in practices and drills, and then they play game situations. A lot of people say the game is downplayed, and I think, sure, from a scouting perspective, it might be, but I did enjoy seeing, certain QBs, certain wide receivers, just even running backs, and be in like a game situation, play situational football, even the defenders to an extent, because I think maybe it's just the way the game's set up when you only have a week with a bunch of new players, with a new coach to practice, but the pass rushers, I think, stood out, which is good for us. It wasn't that I saw like one or two guys stand out from the rest. It was just like it seemed like no matter who the QB was during the game, they were getting constant pressure. And so, that bodes well for us that, hey, maybe you would think that shows the pass rushing class is deep, or maybe it shows that the offensive tackle class is terrible. But the MVP of the game was Jack Bech, and first and foremost, he played a hell of a game. The reports on him were great coming out of practice. Some of the highlights, you saw him making great catches in the drill portion of the Senior Bowl week. But again, like to the situational football standpoint, he had some key plays during the game. The biggest was the game-winning catch that he had at the end when his team was down by 3 and they were driving with, I think they got the ball with like 1:45 left. They didn't have any timeouts. The QB was, I forget the guy's first name, but Hennigan from Memphis, of all guys. They had some QBs that I didn't even think were at the Senior Bowl come in at times. There was a guy from Canada. I'm gonna butcher his name. It starts with the E.
Drake.
Yeah. I guess we got him in just before all the hoopla started with politically, but no. But no, he looked actually kind of decent, and but that final drive led by the Memphis QB and Bech, he had some key catches. The guys showed awareness. The offensive skill guys, they caught the ball. Even if they caught one at the hash, they were getting out of bounds, stopping the clock. And the thing I liked about Bech as a player is that he was making contested catches. I know his hand measurements apparently are kind of small, but maybe that doesn't matter when you're going up for it. And he's pretty wide-framed dude. Originally, most people down this way know he started out at LSU. He's a Lafayette kid, kind of from near Opelousas, and originally started as a tight end, so he's already kind of geared towards a bigger frame.
He's only like 6'1" and about 216.
He's not the tallest guy, but he's built.
He's not at all a tight end though.
But he's stocky, right? And he looked to have some burst. The game-winning pass, for instance, was a crossing route, and it kind of was one of those where he started on the left side, guarded by either a nickel or a linebacker, just kind of got separation from his man in order to secure the catch. And if he ends up coming to the Saint, I think we'd be lucky to have him. But the end of that game, too, for me, was a beyond football thing, because obviously Jack Bech is one whose older brother was killed in the New Year's Day terrorist attack, and much has been made about that. A lot of people are very aware of the tributes to his brother Tiger Bech, but so his family was on the field after the game, and it was really cool to see. But he was the biggest standout for me from that game. But
yeah, I mean, it was disappointing to me that the two top quarterbacks, neither of them were there.
Yeah.
Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I think, were both at the East-West Shrine game, which is the competing All-Star game.
But
they didn't really practice.
They didn't play in that one.
No, Shedeur was there doing interviews. I know that. And I'm pretty sure Cam Ward was there, too. And it's it just was kind of strange that the two frontline guys weren't at the premier, All-Star game for college prospects.
Yeah.
So.
And I will say, too, Jim Nagy's the guy who heads up the Senior Bowl, and he's done a hell of a job. It's come a long way. It's gotten, it's nationally televised now. You had several correspondents there on the field calling the games. Like, guys we're used to seeing call NFL games, guys we're used to seeing behind desks on ESPN. So there's a lot of interest in it, a lot of eyes on it. And so it's come a long way. But, yeah, you're right that the top end, whether or not that's something they can ever do something about, I don't know. But yeah, like the top dudes.
No, I mean, they're normally there. Like, usually the
strategically-
players will, if they don't opt out of the All-Star
Yeah.
games, they'll go to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So it was just strange that the top two guys, because honestly, the quarterback class at the Senior Bowl was lacking.
Yeah.
You
It
know, I
was.
think Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe were the two, I guess, top guys there. Maybe Dylan Gabriel. But, it wasn't a very impressive roster, and
Yeah,
none of them really looked great.
The only other names that
Tyler
people would know,
Show, I don't even know how to say
Sean,
his name.
he was doing pretty well. Then he had a kind of just a bad throw interception towards the end of his session. But one guy the two guys they said I think that looked the best. They didn't have any touchdowns, but Dylan Gabriel and Riley Leonard actually looked good in the game.
The thing is, though, the scouts usually downplay the actual game.
right.
Like, it's all about the practice, and you see a lot of the players and some of the scouts usually bail out before the game even goes.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll admit, I didn't really watch
Well, I
a
was
whole lot of
reading,
the practices.
I was reading Dane Brugler, who's the Athletic, and he did a summary of the quarterbacks, and he was saying, Tyler Show was probably the most impressive one. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. That's just Shough. He's 25 years old, though. He's kind of bounced around.
Oh, Shuck. They were saying Shuck on TV.
Is that how you say it?
I don't know why it's pronounced that way.
How do you say it?
Shuck, like Shuck an oyster.
Shuck. Okay.
I have no idea why it's
Tyler
that way.
Shuck. There we go. But
He's older than Corey, and he's coming out in the draft.
yeah, I mean, he Dane Brugler highlighted him as a possible QB3 or QB4 candidate for this draft. So that tells you basically after Ward and Sanders, it's pretty weak, and it's up for anyone to take. I know Jackson Dart's the fashionable name right now, and everyone thinks he's going to climb up into the first round. I still think he's more of a second-round guy. That Ole Miss offense is kind of not at all geared for translating to the NFL.
Yeah, he's one.
It's certainly not a pro-style offense.
He's one where word on the street is that the media opinion is over here about him, and then the scouting opinion's over here. We're like scouting opinion saying he's got some talent, but he's inconsistent, and the media keeps pushing him into this day one category.
That happens every year, though. You remember the Kenny Pickett year, and it was Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett were both projected to be high first-round picks, and Malik Willis goes in like the third or fourth round, and Pickett was
should have gone in the third or fourth round. Pickett.
Yeah. I mean, neither one of them are really any good, and this year kind of looks like that year.
That's
I'll go back further to Jim Druckenmiller year. You remember that one where he was like the 25th
He was the
pick?
only one.
He was the only first-round pick that year. So,
Yeah.
this quarterback class is weak. And it figures that the Saints would have the 9th pick in the draft the year that there are no quarterbacks to take.
Right. The 9th pick last year would have been amazing for the quarterback class.
Well, that's a good question. Do you think both of them get picked before our pick?
Yes,
I do
think
too.
so.
And I don't necessarily think they should be, but
I don't either.
That's personal opinion. I'm not enamored with either of those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not even hoping one would to fall to us so we could get one.
Well, let me ask
Do
you
you
this,
think
though.
we would do it if they were there?
Yeah, and I was going to ask you your opinion. So, for all intents and purposes, it looks like Kellen Moore is going to be the next head coach of the Saints. Obviously, offensive coordinator background. You would think they want to give him a toy or two in the draft this year.
Yeah.
So, I'll ask you first, if, let's just say, hypothetically, I don't think this is going to happen. I think both are gone when we pick. Let's just say both of them were there somehow at 9. Would you be fine if we took one? If Moore's like, I think this is the guy.
I mean,
And if so, which one would you prefer?
I'd prefer Ward. But I would say if you're going to hire a coach, you have to let the coach make the decision. So I'm not going to have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Do I think it's the best path for us? No. Would I be upset with them saying, look, Kellen Moore thinks Cam Ward's a star and we're going to draft Cam Ward because he was there and we didn't think he'd be there? Sure. I mean, absolutely. I've told you many times, if you don't have a first sure quarterback, then you draft quarterback until you have a quarterback.
Yeah.
You draft them every year because just look who wins Super Bowls. It's an anomaly for one of those top guys to win a Super Bowl. We talked about it, I think, a little bit on the last one. Nick Foles is the only name you can come up with that's a non-Hall of Famer that's won a Super Bowl in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
So, for me, we know Carr needs a very, very high-level talent team to get to an ultimate success level. I think we all agree with that. So you don't have one of those guys. You have the second tier of those. In my opinion, he's still in that second tier of guys. That a bunch of those have gotten paid, and people act like they're better than Carr, but to me they're not. It's the same boat. But you don't have a top-tier guy. So if you don't have a top-tier guy or a guy that is 24 years old that you think can be a top-tier guy, no, I wouldn't have a problem with this draft in one of those. I don't see it, but I'm not an expert, and I'm wrong on these things, obviously. So, if you're drafting a quarterback, I'm never going to be mad about it.
As long as you don't trade up.
Right.
That's the key. No
Do
trade
not
up.
trade up.
If you take it at the spot you're at,
Yeah.
like if at pick 9, one of those guys is there, and Kellen Moore and the rest of the brain trust say, hey, this is the guy, we believe we can take him and mold him into an upper echelon quarterback, and I'm fine with it at that point. Like he said, I probably won't see it right away.
Right.
Because I wouldn't pick either of these guys with the first pick in the draft. Like this is
I'm kind of at the point where I don't know that I would want either of them at number 9. Now I know.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know that it's like you said. If we did, the presumption is that if we did pick one of these guys at number 9, that our coaching staff and scouts have made the decision that they're good enough at that spot to be picked ahead of, say like a Tedorora McMillan or if they're in love with Genty or if they're in love with Will Campbell.
You want to see someone's head explode?
Oh, I know.
If Genty gets picked at 9?
I know. Yes. But they're saying that this QB, one of Shadur or Cam Ward, is better than any other or pass rusher or edge rusher that's there. So I get that from, as a fan, we should trust the guys that actually do it for a living versus our own feeling on it. But I mean, I'm not blown away by either of them. I don't know. I feel like they're both still projects, and at least in terms of becoming a perennial starter in the league. So if you're drafting one of these dudes and you're doing it at the expense of what would likely be a huge impact player, I just don't know how I feel about that. Just given how many other needs our team has, I don't know.
Well, I guess
and
it also,
especially because next year's QB class is so strong.
Yeah, but that's always the case. Next year's class is always stronger.
Everybody said this year's class was going to be weaker, was going to be down. Last year they said that next year's class not looking great.
Well, last year's class was historic.
It was. So maybe we're kind of blinded by that.
Maybe,
but
we still don't know that.
No, but going into the draft, just from how they were ranked.
Yeah.
To have how many went in the top 12?
Yeah.
6
So,
or something?
like,
It's crazy.
if it's an A or B question, and it's one of those, even at number 9, take one of those two guys or take the field, I'm leaning towards the field, just because of how many other really, really talented guys there are out there.
But I believe you don't have a team unless you have a quarterback. So if they did do it, I wouldn't be upset.
I wouldn't
That's what
be
I'm
upset
saying.
either.
Yeah,
I don't
with
want
you.
it, but I wouldn't be upset.
I don't love them, and I wouldn't want them, but I'll never complain about if you think that's the quarterback. Because, look, number 1's no guarantee, okay? So
Yeah.
if, we went over those numbers in a previous episode of, like, how difficult it is to hit. But what I can tell you is the best quarterbacks in the league are first-round picks.
Yeah.
That's reality. Now, there have been probably, 2/3, 3/4 of the other first-round picks that have failed. So
Yeah.
it's still a 20%, 30% proposition when you're picking. But what you do know is the elite guy, the Tom Brady story, is the rarest thing on the planet.
Really
and,
few and far between.
even Drew being picked where he was picked was
First pick of the
basically
second round.
basically a first-round pick. He was the first pick of the second round.
Where was Russell Wilson drafted? I
Third
forget.
round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a good example. But outside of that, I mean, if you look right now, my top 5 right now, and, there can be debate over that, is, Josh, Pat,
Burrow,
Lamar, and Stafford. For me, that's your 5. They're all first-round picks. Burrow and Stafford being number 1 overall. Pat and
Josh Allen, top 10.
Josh Allen,
Or
top,
right around.
top, top half of the first round, and then Lamar in the back half because he was perceived to be too much of a running quarterback to be picked.
Yeah.
But a lot of people thought he was talented enough to be picked in the first half of the first round too. That bears out percentage-wise. You're going to have to go into the first round to get a quarterback if you want to get an elite one.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll never have a problem with it unless you have that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't going where we are right now on February 3rd or 4th, whatever the day is. I
Third,
don't
yep.
want us to pick a quarterback at number 9, but I will understand it, and I will talk myself into it if it happens. Given that we've only drafted one quarterback in the first round in our entire history, it doesn't feel like that streak's going to be broken this year.
I don't think so either. I agree with Corey on that. I don't think that's the pick.
I think, and from what Diana Rossini's podcast tells us, it seems like Loomis and the rest of the executive team, I guess, are a little more just understanding that this is a bigger rebuild than what
Right.
has been projected previously.
Yeah.
So if that is the vision that has been sold to Kellen Moore, when they say, hey, give us your 3 to 4 year plan on how to turn this around.
Yeah.
Then at that case, to Corey's point and what we've talked about before, build out the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line, build that up and then drop a quarterback in there in 26 or 27, preferably 27. I wouldn't even go get a quarterback next year. Like, this team really needs a rejuvenation on both lines. You know, we got to
Yeah, but I won't say that
mode.
because we just saw a quarterback just completely transform a team and make the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
With weaknesses all over the field.
Yeah.
In all honesty. So I wouldn't.
Now,
say
that quarterback, though, is special.
Yeah, but he didn't go first, right? So it's.
What do you go, second?
Yeah, but someone passed on him. Someone still passed on him, right? So I would say, depending where you're drafting and who's there, I'm on board next year too, just like I am this year. If you think, because if you get that guy, and just as long as you can protect him enough not to ruin him,
Yeah.
they can wait because the careers of quarterbacks are long. So then you start loading up and you fixing the gaps you have.
Yeah.
You know.
I wouldn't be upset, though, if it was a similar situation to like what happened with the Bears. So the Bears had that first pick in the Bryce Young year. And they decided, you know what? We don't like what we're not as, I guess, comfortable picking Bryce Young here or C.J. Stroud, for that matter. So they said, let's go ahead and trade with the Panthers. The Panthers were desperate to get up, make that splash. The Bears loaded up on picks. They looked forward to the next year, saw that it looked like a much better class, you know, with, I guess, quote-unquote, generational talents. Because, look, there were 3 top guys that were the highest-rated QBs in the last couple of years. So they pushed it back again and ended up, you know, getting the windfall of all the draft picks and getting the first pick in the draft, the quarterback.
But what
so.
if the Panthers would have won 6 games that year and they didn't get that pick?
Yeah, but they
you know
did.
what I'm saying?
So I don't mind. I don't mind it if
You're
the
still
Saints.
guessing.
I don't mind it if this year we have to build out the trenches or just take the field, as Corey says.
Yeah.
Next year, let's just say Arch does come out, you know, and he's the top guy. Then obviously, if you're in position, take him. But if he doesn't come out, like I don't think he will, and he's sitting there the 2027 draft, and there's a few other guys in that draft that look pretty special as well, I would not have an issue if the Saints did move back and just get a windfall of picks to help solidify the rest of the roster, and then, you know, knowing they're probably still not going to be as good, go up and get the quarterback
Yeah.
next.
I mean, the idea of us moving back, it's the same as us having like a salary cap in the black. But I will say,
Maybe things change. You know?
maybe. But I will say, I do agree with you, Nick, that you know, your team, the modern day NFL, the best teams have their dude at quarterback. There's no question. But I think, I guess my take on our situation is that it seems readily apparent that we're in more than a 1-year rebuilding mode. I mean, I'm not saying you don't think that, Nick, but I think, you know, because we're looking at least 2 years before we're truly competitive. Now, anything could happen. We could Kellen Moore come in here and have some kind of thing figured out with our offense, and we do just good enough on defense to where we're just good enough to win the NFC South when we make the playoffs. So that's possible for next year, sure. But in terms of like truly having a complete team, I think I don't see our team all of a sudden becoming what you would call a truly complete team for at least another 2 years, which is why I
agree.
I
I'm
want
just
us
saying,
to.
I don't care what order you fix that in. If the quarterback's the pick the quarterback.
If the special one's
it's
there,
but
take
I
'em.
think
Right.
I still think it has to be, you know, well, there's no such thing as a sure bet, but like, give yourself the best chance to get the best guy at that position because it's so important, and you still have to build around it. I mean, while the best teams have a dude at quarterback, they also have huge key contributors at other positions. I mean, the Chiefs with Kelsey and Chad Jones, the Ravens with, you know, Mark Andrews,
Jones.
Roquan Smith, Chris Jones. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
when
you know,
LSU right there.
Yeah, Chad Jones. Yeah, if only he's a what could have been. But
Yeah, he is.
gosh, but no, I mean, like all the best teams, they have at least 2 or 3 other all pros or Pro Bowlers anyway around the QB, and we're lacking even that.
We
Not the
are
Bills.
devoid of talent.
Not the Bills. They have
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah, they are led. I mean, James Cook was a Pro Bowler, and he had a great year to help Josh Allen. I mean, I think there's no secret why the Bills looked the way they looked with a guy who was actually a threat out of the backfield. They didn't have that in a long time. You know, but
That's a guy you can get in the 3rd or 4th round.
yeah, I mean, he was.
No, I mean,
he was
there's
late. He was late
many.
round pick, yeah.
There's documented history of all-pro running backs coming out.
Hell,
of the
his
3rd or
brother
4th
was a
round.
stud and didn't get drafted to the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So.
Right, and
Look no further than Kamara.
You know,
Kamara was a 3rd round.
You know how
pick.
high I was on James Cook coming out because came out of Georgia, right?
Well,
so,
but this is
I mean,
also a reason why Genty should not, under any circumstances, be the pick at 9.
I think he's different. I think he's
I know.
I think he's- I
Saquon
don't
was
think he's
different.
that
It did
different.
nothing for the Giants. As soon as you put Saquon with a team,
Yeah.
it makes a difference.
Well,
I don't
the-
think you can rebuild through running back.
I think the
just
Giants just fucked that up. I mean, I think Daniel Jones held them back significantly because they just kept trying to make that happen, and it wasn't the thing to do. And I think the rest of their team suffered for it. They didn't, the Giants have their other issues. I think Gentry is a freak of a running back. I know everybody agrees on that, but I know there's also the stigma of drafting running backs high. I will say, I'll go back on record, like I said before, running backs are coming back in style.
I agree with you
I think
there.
you can
I do
gain an
agree with you.
advantage by having a running back who is different than the other types of running backs. Like, Derrick Henry, Saquon. I'm not saying Gentry is automatically a Derrick Henry or a Saquon, but he's certainly closer to having that potential than a lot of these other guys who were drafted in the 3rd and 4th round. I mean, now
Derrick Henry wasn't a first-round pick.
second round pick.
Sure,
But
that's fine.
Also, how many Super Bowls Derrick Henry been to?
No, I don't.
Just
Yeah.
and I love Derrick Henry. Max known this from the get go. The fact he wasn't a starter right when he
again,
came in the league is baffling.
I think it makes. I will say this. I'm one of those call it crazy Saints fans that would love to see it if we did draft Gentry. I will say it does though. It does make your margin for error smaller because you have so much invested in that one position that you really can't mismanage the rest of the team because that's what you saw. I think that's what you saw happen. In
Man,
New
I
York.
would rather give me an offensive
Tennessee.
I
lineman
can't-
or a defensive lineman in the first, and then give me one of these other running backs.
I
in the
can't
second.
disagree with this more because the gap between those running backs and a solid guy you get later in the round is much smaller than a gap you get at other positions in those
Yeah,
same type of
yeah.
players. So for me, you can't rebuild a team with a running back. It's been proven. We say the running back's coming back in style. Well, guess where the running backs went this year? To the Super Bowl contenders, where it makes it very easy to be the best version
more
of
of a
yourself.
plug and play. Yeah.
And look, I think both those guys are obviously incredibly talented and would love to have them on our team. I just think if you're rebuilding, the running back's kind of the last piece, not the first piece. That's just how I feel about it.
Listen, nothing about what you're saying is illogical. Okay? You're being very rational, Nick. All right? Everything you're saying makes a lot of sense.
think he was the Heisman winner, personal opinion.
Everything
Max
you're
and I
saying
argued
makes
over
a
this.
ton of sense. I just really like Ashton Gentry.
I do too.
But,
No, I do too, but here's the thing, though.
but, yeah,
Look, I was a
it's-
huge fan of the Lions taking Gibbs. But here's the thing. The Lions at that point where you could tell they were
Yeah,
turning the
they were
corner
built
and
different.
he was one of the missing pieces.
I don't know.
I do not, like the Saints are not a player away. It's kind of like with the whole Ricky Williams trade. We were not a player away at that
Correct.
point, and we trade the entire draft for one guy, and it just, let's be honest, he was disappointing for his first couple of years.
Well, that's why, like what I said, I think deciding to draft Gentry, while I would like it, I will admit, it is kind of like someone who who really shouldn't go out and be buying a Lexus or a BMW, who should
Hood
really
rich.
be buying like the Camry. Like there's like, I can afford it. It's like, well, you can afford the note, or you can afford that whatever kind of payment you locked yourself into. You're financing it, right? But you need everything else around you to be perfect, and you need everything else to not go. You need nothing to go wrong.
That's how I feel.
And so I will admit that would be the situation.
Dude, I'm just telling you, I'm looking at the running backs that are in
Look
this
at Bijan.
draft.
Look at Bijan.
It's a deep
right?
running. It is a deep running.
No,
back
no.
draft.
It is like the deepest running back
It's-
draft since the Camara year with all those
Draft
guys.
two of them.
It
Draft
is an
two of them. We
impressive-
got
That's what I was
couple-
going to say. I'm looking at Trevion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins, the two Ohio State guys. Both of them ranked in the, looks like, late second, early third round.
Yeah.
One of them's fallen to the late third.
I like Trevion.
Yeah, I'll take any of them in a
Look,
second.
My position on Gentry is definitely not that. I don't think there's other guys to be had out there, because there absolutely are. I mean, there's a ton of dudes.
This year, we
still
talked
out there.
about it. We think there's 10 picks, and it doesn't include the two quarterbacks.
There-
There's 10 guys that I think there's a separation mark there.
And if you look at our current running back room, I mean,
That's
obviously AK, but I don't think you can even. I know we have Kendre Miller, but I don't think you can even
can't count on
consider
him.
having him.
He couldn't learn the other playbook.
So-
You think he's going to learn the new one?
So there are guys that I truly believe if you drafted like a Trevion, maybe a Judkins,
Third round. Third round's where you get them.
Even,
we have 2 third-round picks. That's where you pick your running
even the
back.
guy we were talking about out of Tennessee, where you put them in our running back room,
Yeah, Dylan Sampson.
and they're better. They're the next guy behind AK.
Yeah, and look, Nick just referenced it, so I'm looking at, we have pick 9. So let's go through, I'm on the NFL mock draft database. So what this does is this pulls from literally every site that has a mock draft, and it does a consensus
Nice.
ranking for them all. So take out the 2 quarterbacks. Then you got Abdul Carter, basically zero chance he'll be there for
Right.
us. Travis Hunter, zero
Won't
chance.
be there.
Mason Graham most likely won't be there. That's 3. So then you get to Will Campbell, Ted McMillan, Will Johnson, Kelvin Banks, Michael Williams, who I don't like, but
I'd rather
Malachi Starks,
Jalen Walker.
Tyler Warren, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, Luther Burke. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys. There's at least 10 guys,
Yeah.
not counting the quarterbacks, that I would be fine with at 9.
Yeah.
And that's not normal. I don't.
That's
think.
not normal.
I think you're starting to question stuff right where we're picking. That's where it starts to get a little sketchy. I think this year, literally, they could pick a dozen people, and I'd be fine with the pick. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can make a case. Abdul Carter's there, you sprint to the podium.
Yeah.
Like,
of
that's
course,
not even
Graham
a
too.
question.
If Graham were to fall, you'd sprint to the podium.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter's there, you sprint to the podium.
Yeah.
Graham, you sprint to the podium. Then that next group, that's where it gets a little more. Everyone's probably a tier below those
Yeah.
guys. But then you got Will Campbell, Ted McMillan, Will Johnson, Kelvin Banks. Any of those guys is an immediate starter.
Yeah. I think
I don't like Michael Williams at all.
I'm not at that spot. I just look. He could be like.
So Michael
Jared
Williams, it
Burks,
is.
right?
So
But-
we-
I have the feeling it's going to be him just because.
And I know, look, if you're asking about the difference between Michael and a guy like Jalen Walker, I watched every single game they
he
played
Jalen
in.
Walker's way
one
better.
performed and one didn't.
Jalen Walker
Right.
is way better. Michael Williams was injured for a whole lot of the year.
So you know
And
we're
even-
picking him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Talented guy, injured all the time.
he fits the RAS profile probably better than Jalen Walker. Or at least fits if you're drafting him as an end. If you're comparing the Michael Williams, Jalen Walker as ends or edge rushers, Michael Williams fits into the Saints' typical drafting scheme better because he's bigger.
Yeah.
But Jalen Walker, there's not enough good things you can say about that guy as a football player, as a person, as a
he's
leader.
awesome. He's awesome.
And he's athletic as shit. And he really does remind me a lot of DeMario Davis.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's not like maybe the same physical build. He's probably
he's about the same size.
a little leaner, I think, but obviously we can put on a little bit. He might be a little taller.
I mean, he's 20.
He's young,
21
but
years
he's young,
old, yeah.
right? But he wasn't really playing like a true he wasn't a 24/7 inside linebacker like DeMario is, but that was just the nature of Kirby Smart's scheme at Georgia. But the key point with Jalen Walker for me is that he, wherever they put him, you saw him. He showed up.
Yeah.
None of
And-
us are upset if we take Malachi Starks. There's a bunch.
You would
of
be a little peeved. I mean, a safety in the top 10.
I generally wouldn't, but with our safety situation, I wouldn't be upset with it because I do think he's a super talented dude.
Yeah.
And look,
can play.
Honey Badger's 33. We have no one at the other spot. We're going
Yeah.
to bring Will Harris back, hopefully.
Look,
Look,
the
my
thing that
guy-
pushes it over the edge for me is when we're talking about who to draft at that spot. Because at 9, and maybe even our second pick, but especially at the number 9 pick, you're talking about a guy who you need to be a multi-year starter, and who at every position is position of need, but which ones are dropping off the cliff the fastest. And you look at DeMario and you look at Honey Badger, so you look at the linebacker and the safety positions. That's why like what's our succession plan? That's what I like at that pick. That's why I like Jalen Walker to come in at linebacker. I do like Malachi Starks. I'm on the fence about him.
We don't
at
even know
9.
what defense we're running next year.
That's the other thing we really don't.
But that's
You know?
why like these guys in particular, they've shown versatility. Like you can put them in.
Well,
a lot
hold
of
on. So
different
speaking
kinds.
of versatility, my guy, Tyler Warren.
That won't happen.
Tyler Warren, that's
Now,
well, that's succession plan piece too, because
that's not a. We don't have
That's
a
a
fucking
starter
player.
tomorrow.
That's
That's a
an
starter, you're right.
absolute.
Yeah.
That's an absolute day
he's-
one.
he's plug
you
and
are
play.
the best tight end we've had in
he's
years.
plug and play.
He would be, but I just don't think they'll go to that position first this year.
Unless they feel like
I would love a trade back to like 3 or 4 spots.
We know they were very much considering Bowers after the last
They would've
year's
taken
draft.
Bowers.
So maybe, but that's Dennis Allen.
I don't think they
being-
would have.
And
You
it
don't think they
sounded
would've
like
taken
Allen.
him?
It sounded
I
like
don't think
Allen
they
was about to pull the trigger if he was there. From his post-draft press conferences, he
I mean, we all said it a million times. That was
That was the best
a
player in the draft,
surefire
yeah.
top 10 pick that didn't go in the top 10. Why would we not pick him there? I mean, I would have.
I mean, we would have.
Even the Raiders didn't fuck it up, Corey.
yeah. I mean, if
The Falcons screwed the Raiders.
you're thinking like, God, he had those stats with Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah.
I mean,
God, yeah.
good Lord.
But look, a great tight end. I'm sorry, an elite tight end transforms an offense.
Yeah.
Look at the Chiefs. Look at the 49ers.
It opens up the
Look
extremities.
at the Raiders
Yeah.
now. It changes everything when you have that guy who can go dominate.
Yeah.
We had it in Jimmy Graham, and I'm telling you, Tyler Warren is special. And, we all saw it with Brock Bowers. I watched enough Penn State games this year that Tyler Warren's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like Taysom in that you can line him up, former quarterback. He throws the ball, lines up in the backfield. He does all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's kind of your de facto Taysom replacement while also being the tight end we haven't had since Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, yeah. He's just a good, when in doubt, draft a good football
We've got to get a tight end.
Draft
I can't watch Juwan Johnson again.
When in doubt, draft a good football player. Just a guy who loves the ball. Like, that's, what Taysom is. That's what a lot of, like DeMario or the guys
let's do
we
this.
love.
Who's your early leader in the clubhouse at 9? What's your preference? Pick one guy. Just give me one guy.
And
Based
you
on-
can't pick those guys that we think are top 5 for sure.
Right,
So
right.
eliminate
Based
Abdul
on-
Carter,
based on who's likely to
Travis
be
Hunter.
there.
Graham and the quarterbacks?
Yeah, Graham and the quarterbacks.
Because the quarterbacks are going before.
Yeah. And Graham most likely.
The top, I definitely have a 3 that I like, and it's Ted McMillan, Will Campbell, and Jalen Walker. As far as what what I suspect we would do out of those.
No, not suspect. What do you want us to do? We have no idea what we're going to do because we're going to have a brand
We don't
new
even have a
coaching
coach.
staff.
Right, we don't
Yeah.
have a coach.
You can't even project that right now. This is strictly Corey. What would you want? Give me your one guy. Realistic guy. No trade ups at 9.
Ted McMillan.
Okay.
It's hard not to say Jalen Walker, but
Do you feel wide receivers a bigger need than linebacker at this point?
yeah, we only have 2 of them, and they're both hurt.
Okay. What you got?
If I can't have one of those 5, I'd probably say Will Campbell.
I think that's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah.
Because I just think if you can build a monster offensive
Yeah.
line, that you can change the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. I mean, it's hard to have a wrong answer this year.
And
given,
look, there's no wrong
you know,
answer because we
no.
need help everywhere.
Except-
Again, if
Except
they pick
Jensen.
your guy, I'm happy about it. I'm not going to be upset if they take McMillan.
I'd be
at
happy
all.
with
I'm happy.
McMillan, Jalen Walker,
Yeah.
any of the
Yeah.
people we mentioned. I'm happy with, but my preference would be Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Or if you could drop back 2 or 3 spots, Tyler Warren.
Yeah. And if you drop back, you're also in Malachi Stark's range too. But he could, somebody could
Starks
jump up
is-
and can
he's-
get him.
The last couple of mocks I've seen,
He might
on the
shoot up.
back end of the
Yeah, there
first
was
round.
there was one that
It's
should have been
crazy.
like,
He's in like the
23.
20s. Yeah,
And I think that's the
I saw one with him
overall-
at 33.
And I think it's less on him because I mean, nothing has happened with regards to these players. Like
It's just whether
it's
someone
just-
wants a safety.
It's
That's
a
what
safe.
gonna
It's
be.
the safety.
Yeah.
You know, like
Right.
that's all it is.
If there isn't someone who really wants a safety, he could fall all the way back there. But
And
if
the
you
other thing
take
is,
one,
he's
if he
not
got
huge.
taken at 8, you wouldn't be shocked either, though.
Right, but like Kyle Hamilton, who was 6'4" and like 215, freakish size.
Yeah.
Like Starks doesn't have
Stark's
any
not. He's not
freakish
that. No.
thing. He's just an incredible football player.
He's one of these guys where if you saw him walking down the street,
Did you say Ed
wouldn't
Reed?
think you wouldn't think
He
much
wasn't
of
that
him.
big.
Yeah, he's
but he doesn't
really,
have Ed Reed's production.
No, he does not.
And
But
he doesn't. Malachi doesn't hit like Ed Reed hits. One guy who's a sleeper that speaking of Georgia guys, I'm just thinking about him. Also was in the Senior Bowl, had a good week of practice by all accounts. Is Dan Jackson. The white DBs are back in style too, right? But no, he was a baller. He's a walk on at Georgia. Wore number 17. If y'all watch any of our games, had a targeting hit against him in one of the big games. I can't remember, but he's one of these like really
How
cerebral.
many
but
DUIs does he have?
none. He's a great driver,
You sure he went to Georgia?
allegedly. But
walk on. That's the difference.
but he
went
he's like a
scholarship.
late round safety option. He's just a good, sure tackler, good football player.
Oh, so you're going even deeper. You're giving us a guy you want in the late round. Like
I just
one
thought
of
about it. I
your-
was thinking Malachi Stark, Georgia safety.
I got my guy lined up.
Who's that?
The Ole Miss defensive tackle / fullback,
The
JJ
big guy.
Pegues.
The huge guy.
What
400
about?
pounds.
He's that dude had 7 touchdowns this year, just moonlighting on offense.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember him.
We got,
when
what,
he
like-
was a
we have,
freshman,
like,
he
two
was a
7
tight
round-
end. He was a stud tight end recruit at Auburn.
Okay.
And he had a couple of crazy runs because he's athletic as shit. And then they switched him to defensive tackle because the coaches are like, this guy's a future all.
You're not talking about
weak
Walter
tackle.
Nolan. Isn't that their guy?
It's the other defensive tackle.
Okay. Okay.
Ole Miss was loaded. There's a lot of talent.
I like the D tackle from.
Except the coach.
I do like the D tackle from Kentucky as well. I forgot about him because he's
Yeah, but he's going to go first round or second round now. We're talking like you were going.
I don't know if
deep
I'd
with
pick him. I don't know
with
if I'd
your
pick
cut.
him at 9. But he's kind of that big boy that you're talking about. Like if Graham's gone, the D tackle from Kentucky looks good.
So here you go. J.J. Pegues, 6'2", 324.
Okay.
So this year he had 3.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman. At 3.5 the year before, 3 before that. So defensive tackle, rock solid. This is where it gets fun, though.
So he's like young Bink.
Yeah, a little bit better.
Young
this
Bink.
is where we get. So he had 21 carries, 69 yards, 7 touchdowns.
21 carries.
He was a former
He was the
stud
fourth
running
down.
back,
They
fullback.
bring him in on 4th down and short too, and the goal line.
I'm trying to think.
Very
saw him for
reminiscent-
sure. You
very
saw him for
reminiscent
sure.
of Pooh Bear Williams back
we,
in the day.
We played them this year. I'm trying to remember if the game sucked for us, for Georgia, but I'm trying to remember if they put him in when we played him.
Oh, he's an animal, man.
Yeah.
He's an absolute animal. But I would love that. And you can play him at defensive tackle or play him at fullback.
It's one of the reasons I was upset we didn't get Jordan Davis when during that draft. I had my eye on him, but he's a guy that Georgia would bring in as the lead back on goal line formations. I haven't seen Philly do it yet because obviously they got the tush push, but big Jordan Davis fucking.
Yeah, but this is a world of difference. I'm talking about someone who's actually good at it. Davis was just
Jordan
huge and
Davis had a
big. He
touchdown,
wasn't-
bro.
Great, he had 1 touchdown.
Don't be hating.
I'll never forget it.
No, if you watch Pegues play, he's the dude's an animal. Absolutely.
Yeah,
animal.
I mean, look-
and he actually showed out at the East-West Shrine game at an interception.
Okay.
Defensive tackle.
See, that's one All-Star game I did not watch because they say the draft starts in Mobile. No one says it about the East-West Shrine game.
the 2 best quarterbacks were there.
Yeah, well, I mean, what, on the sideline? But anywho, yeah, look, I
at
think
this.
just
One-handed pick right here. Telling you, man.
yeah, just given where we're picking, I know what were we at 13 last year when we picked? I know we're not
13,
a
yeah.
whole lot
Was it
higher.
13? 14 or 13? 13?
We're not a whole lot higher up than we were last year, but
What was Bauer's pick?
But
That's the answer.
being ninth,
12, I believe.
and then the way that translates down to the rest of the draft, I am excited about what could be, especially given, God, how much we need. It'll be interesting. We have a hell of a long way to go throughout this draft process. It's kind of like what I tell people this time of year when you have a Mardi Gras that doesn't happen until March. Got a long way to go. Don't start crushing king cake just yet.
Yeah. And like we said, we don't even have a coach, so it's hard to speculate too much on which way we'll go.
We don't have.
I think
a
we
coach
are
in
fortunate.
Air
There
quotes.
are players there, as long as we don't go off the radar, that, at least in our opinion, it should be a can't miss type of player. Whether they end up an elite player or not, time will tell. But we think there's a lot of good players this year.
If there was
at the top half of that.
ever a time for Mickey to trade back, he could seriously do it.
This is the year to do it,
unless
honestly.
Abdul or Mason Graham's there or none. But barring that, just
Bowers was 13. We were 14.
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was right there.
We were
No, but to your point, this is the year, if we were ever going to trade down,
Just-
this is the year to do it, accumulate as many picks as possible,
Yeah.
elevate the talent on this team, because as we talked about in the last couple episodes, this team is devoid of talent.
Yeah, it's like the one of those 15 mock drafts I did. I accepted almost every trade, and ended up with 13 picks. Enough picks to where we couldn't sign all the guys. But
They
it was
need
so
bodies.
so nice to look at, just all these young guys.
We just need bodies, like you said.
So that's where we are. I do think we're at that point of year where we're immediately post Senior Bowl. We're not yet at the combine. We haven't even had anybody's pro day yet. So there's a lot of unknowns, and
We haven't had the Super Bowl yet.
we haven't had the Super Bowl yet. Not that plays a whole lot into the draft process, but my point is,
Doesn't have anything to do with the Saints, I can assure you that.
yeah, no, except
Well,
for
you
the
know
fact, except for the fact it's in our building.
Why
But,
don't we wrap it up with Super Bowl predictions? Who you got? Just give me a winner.
KC, you can't go against them. I mean, I'm not gonna. Goodell was on the mic, and something's true when he says the opposite. Like, what do you think about the Saints and their whole scandal? Oh, I'm sure the Saints are doing what they have to do to remedy it. What? Nope, wrong. And what do you think of all these conspiracy theories about the refs helping the Chiefs? Oh, I think that's ridiculous. Well, then it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my beat on it. And
Do you have
look,
a Corey's Lock of the Week Super Bowl edition?
oh, well, you didn't tell me that was coming. Yeah, lock of the week is Travis Kelce touchdown. and Chiefs win.
Okay. Who you got?
Chiefs, just because I agree. I'd like.
Until
I'm going with the quarterback.
Until
It's
proven
scripted.
otherwise.
Yeah, he is the best player in the game. As much as his antics are annoying as shit.
Yeah.
He's still the best player in the game. It is what it is. If they aren't up double digits with 3 minutes to go, they're not winning the game. The Eagles will not win the game.
Yeah.
I do think the Eagles are a better overall team, but the gap between Mahomes and Hurts, and if it's a close game, which I think it will be, that's Mahomes all the way. The lock for me is Mahomes over his rushing yards.
Yes.
Mark it down.
Yes.
100%.
Always.
That'll hit
Bet
for
that.
sure. Yeah.
Whatever it is, bet it.
He'll have a scramble where he looks like he's going in slow motion, yet people are just falling off of him. And he's going to pretend like he's stepping out of bounds, and then someone's going to shove him and get a penalty.
Yep, probably.
But I'm going with the Chiefs as well. You know, it's all about the quarterback, and they have the far superior quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm not high. I think Hurts is somewhere in the teens when it comes to quarterbacks in this league, and I don't think he's near elite. You blitz him, he's got trouble.
Actually, I'm going to switch my lock to Jalen Hurts turnover.
That's a lot.
Because I was thinking about that. I mean, Kelsey's actually the big guys for the Chiefs don't always get the touchdown in the Super Bowls. You know, like we saw the George guy, Mecole Hardman getting the game winner. Guys like that, like Pacheco, when we didn't really know who he was.
Even Kadarius Toney hit a touchdown in that one, right?
Yeah, shockingly. I'm sure Xavier Worthy is going to have like a end around or something kind of crazy. And that's the shitty thing about this whole like flag bullshit that the league has thrown in everybody's face is that Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes are the greats. You know, like the great QB, great coach, but it's like totally like mired by how bad the officiating has been.
And look, we've talked about it. I don't think any of us are in the it's rigged department.
No.
I'm certainly not.
No.
I think it is an issue the NFL refuses to address, and it just so happens to have helped the Chiefs a lot in a short amount of time.
Like,
I think that's all it is. It's just luck of the draw that they benefited from these close calls that happen every week. We see them in our games. We see them in every game. And just so happens they've been on the good end of them on a streak a little bit here.
Yep.
And it's just happenstance. But
People, they throw a lot of words at the issue and conspiracies, but it's as simple as this. The NFL exists to be a product that we want to watch, and it makes it harder to watch the product.
it does.
You
No
know,
doubt.
and-
And it needs to be fixed. And why it isn't is shameful to me. Every other sport has technology that can do all these things we're
Put
complaining
a chip
about.
in the fucking ball.
Put a chip in the ball and the sticks. It's done. It's so easy.
And people act like we're now at that technology has long existed.
Look at tennis.
You just have to
I
watch
can
a
see
tennis
exactly
match.
where the ball
Yeah.
hits the goddamn court every time.
Like in VAR and soccer, I know that gets a lot of criticism at times, but
I'll tell you what doesn't. Goal line technology, it's right every time in soccer.
Yeah.
Yes, VAR is still it'd be like looking at pass interference, and you're going to have people disagree on some of those type of fouls and things. But
Yeah.
goal line technology is clear as day. It's a goal or it's
breaking
not.
the plane.
Right.
Yeah.
Tennis. I mean, look how advanced the tennis. If tennis can track that ball going 130 miles an hour to, the 100th of an inch of in or out.
A piece of leather moving at 0.5 miles an hour should be just fine.
No problem.
Like when somebody's running
the
it.
technology's
Yeah.
there, just adopt it. Why have we not? And it doesn't slow the game down because football's a slow game.
It's a good old boys club.
There's if you think you got it, say the Bills think they got that, a third
No,
down.
the tennis technology would have confirmed it.
Yeah,
big time.
But give it 30 seconds. You have a 40-second play clock. Give it 30 seconds.
You put it on the screen, the crowd gets into it.
I mean, you don't have to slow the game down to handle those type of
If
issues.
anything, it would speed it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
good
They need
God.
to address the personal fouls. Obviously, what Mahomes has done this playoffs is to me just shameful on the league, not on Mahomes, because Mahomes just taking advantage of the rule. The league needs to
Smart
not
by him.
allow that to happen because
Yeah.
it's obvious what he's doing. That the pass interference, there needs to be some more defined way of describing it. The catch is still, no one knows what that is. We don't know when it's a first down and not. These are all things that should be able to be fixed. You just make it more obvious. Like, what's a football move? Make it not a football move. Make it 2 feet on the ground. It's settled. 2 feet on the ground.
Yeah.
It's possession.
And it's risky, and no one seems to want it. But I actually believe you put in more more opportunity for judgment calls by the ref, you get a lot better calls. Because half the reason the refs are throwing a lot of these flags is because they've updated the rules to include all these words that by definition of the rule, you hear that every broadcast.
Yeah.
By definition of the rule, that was a penalty because the rule says blank, 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 blank. They've added all these words.
His finger
to
touched
where,
his helmet.
And then the refs have the excuse. We're like, well, my hands are tied because the rule says. Well, it's like, well, get those phrases out of it, and it's just like, was that clear? Targeting with the helmet. Like,
Yeah.
did he hit him with the helmet
Right.
or not? Did he?
And the problem is that there's no review on that, right?
Yeah.
And when they instruct the refs, especially on these personal fouls, they say if it's debatable, call it.
Yeah.
Why are they saying that?
Yeah.
It's not to get the game right.
Right.
It's to cover, like, we care about player safety,
Yeah.
which we know they don't care about. So it's a liability thing that they're really making these decisions and telling the refs how to call games.
Because college has it almost perfect. I'm not going to agree with like the lettering of their rule because sometimes it results in plays that get reviewed that shouldn't be reviewed. But the whole process that college goes through is almost perfect. The only thing that's not perfect is the guy being ejected.
Correct. That should not happen
maybe
unless it's on purpose.
Like a quarter for he's out, like penalty box in hockey. You want to do like a 10-minute game clock situation, that's fine. They could track it, it's fine.
You're taking
But-
away a whole game of a kid's career who worked his whole life to get to that point.
Yeah,
I'm not down with that at all because he has to miss the rest of that half and then
Yeah.
the first half. Or
There's
if
a
he's
lot
in
of
the fir-
improvements that can be made.
Yeah, but I agree with you. They review it every time at least. Now I think they need to tweak that rule too because they say even if it just touched helmet to helmet,
Yeah.
it's technically still
Yeah.
going to get
Yeah.
called and he's
Yeah.
kicked out the game.
the crown and all that
But
shit.
I agree that process is much better.
Put
where-
that process in, make it work. One last thing. The Super Bowl is here. I spent about 20 minutes in damn traffic for NFL's opening night where they used to just be media day. But y'all looking forward to any of the events? Max, I know you were talking about how excited you are to go downtown every day this week, right?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thursday night dinner, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
We're all going to see Drew Brees at Compare Le Pen. So
Oh, yeah, let's go.
hopefully we'll get a pick and we can post it. And
Yeah. We're going to try to be as not obnoxious as we can.
we're going to pretend he's still the quarterback. We'll
We're
do all
going
that stuff.
to play it cool. And I'm probably going to take the kids to the NFL. I think it's called the Super Bowl experience now. I went to that when I was a kid. Remember the Super Bowl 31 NFL experience was like
I'll probably try
amazing.
to get down there one day.
And the last time I went,
Super Bowl show.
I'm gonna.
I went with Eric, who we've mentioned on this podcast. He hasn't sent me the video, but I nailed a 40-yarder at the last one. They got a little setup there.
I wonder why he didn't send you the video.
That
Doesn't exist.
He has it. He knows he has it. So I'm gonna try to go kick a field goal again.
Your word versus his, there.
Let's go.
I
do
did it. I experienced
Field goal
it.
kicking.
Why
I
would,
like it.
why would I lie about that? I mean, if I missed a 40-yarder, say I missed a 40-yarder.
Internet clout.
Like that's the kind of clout I'm really out here for. Like I'm looking for all
I don't
those
know, man. You might
guys
be.
who are just like, that was a good podcast, but you know why I listened to it?
Who wins the kick of
That
destiny is more
hit
important.
Ooh. I don't even know how they're gonna do it too. Anyway, but I give Eli. Eli's beats Peyton and everything. Not everything.
think
not
it's Eli,
football,
too.
but
I was about to say, where did that come from?
they're post.
Not at quarterbacking.
They're
yeah,
post
not at
over-
quarterbacking.
But like the Pro
but he
Bowl.
is more athletic.
By
yes.
everything I meant like the Pro Bowl games. Like Peyton
Right.
can't get a win against them.
Archie's faster than both of them now.
Maybe so. But Eli was a better athlete than Peyton was.
That ain't
coming
saying
out.
much, man.
No.
Eli looks a little more limber.
But he'd
to-
run, he'd
to-
scramble a little bit here and there. He was all right.
I could see.
Not a good athlete, but not a horrendous one.
Arch is a great athlete.
Yeah,
You
we'll
can see he
see.
took after his dad.
Peyton's probably like watching too much film, overthinking it. He's probably, analyzing angles.
Well, we saw
and-
the video of his son. He's procreating Manning now.
Look, if we miss out on Arch, then
we got Marshall.
Just 15 more years, good to go.
Not even that long, man.
How old is he? Like
He's
11?
eighth grade.
Oh, he's in 8th grade.
Yeah. I think he's class of 29, I believe. So that would
Balin
be
is class of 27.
He's
Yeah, Balin Breeze.
that's one thing. If we get a chance to talk to Drew on Thursday,
Don't
the
count
only,
on that,
The
buddy.
only question I'm going to have is, where do you plan on sending your boys to high school, and why is it Jesuit?
He's going to say, I don't live in New Orleans, so I live in San Diego.
He had 4
They have to have a Jesuit school out there.
It's not the one he
Why is it Jesuit High School in New Orleans?
He's going to say, I actually read that article
He's
by
already in
Ramon
high school.
Antonio Vargas about the Catholic Church. So, yeah, we're going to be in San Diego and try to avoid all that.
It's like, well, the perfect person
Balin's
to
a
handle the
sophomore, correct?
publicity.
He's class of 27, whatever.
So, yeah, that's a sophomore.
He's already in high school.
Sophomore,
Yeah.
yeah.
How
15
crazy is that?
years. He was born, he was a baby. For
And I
the
actually
Super Bowl.
watched they were replaying all the Super Bowl highlight videos, and I watched the Saints one yesterday. Always get choked up at the end with the,
It'd be cool if one of them ended up being a great athlete. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think he plays wide receiver, though, so
He does.
I bet you the daughter's going to be the best athlete.
probably so. Anyway, we have anything else before we wrap up?
No. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Looking forward to all the. I'm looking forward to all the events in town. I think it's cool when there's buzz downtown.
I don't like the traffic. I don't want to be down there.
I like all the. I like
don't
just
live
the
down
fact
there
that
anymore, so I don't wanna be
the
down
game we love.
You
Like,
used to
like,
love the traffic.
Yeah, when I could walk everywhere.
I know.
I like that the NFL universe is descending upon.
I like
us.
that it's here.
It's
Yeah.
like 50, like
no,
10,
I love that.
10-minute drive, and like everybody I watch on TV is like right there. Last time I was there, Eric and I were experienced. We saw Chris
All right,
Carter.
before you add on another 30
It's a
minutes
cool
to this
story.
pod,
We saw Chris Carter walking away as he was just told that he made the Hall of Fame, and we told him congrats, and he's thanks, like literally like just like got the alert on the phone. Then there he is, and he's like being shoveled, just escorted away. Like, that was a cool moment.
That's cool.
Stuff like that can happen.
it's a riveting story.
It is.
Let's see what happens Thursday at dinner. Maybe we see
How
some
about John's? Mr. Floyd, bar none.
What?
Malcolm Floyd.
No,
Malcolm
no,
Floyd.
William Floyd.
William
man.
Floyd.
Come on,
William
bar
Floyd.
none.
Florida State. Bar
Last
none.
fullback to get drafted in the first round.
Yeah. And that didn't go great.
We'll ask Drew about Lorenzo Neal since you play with him.
Anyway,
We don't want to bring that up. That's a
No.
whole nother episode.
We'll be kicked out of dinner.
yeah. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. Next time we should be back, hopefully, with some coaching news, and we can dissect that.
We better. Yeah.
But until then, who dat?
Do that.